Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did, so let's get started. Number 5 was Cocaine Bear, making $6.2 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $51 million and a worldwide total of $65 million. So another pretty good weekend for the film. It was able to surpass the $50 million milestone domestically, which I believe is more than they could have hoped for in regards to releasing this movie. And in regards to worldwide numbers, it is just $5 million away from surpassing the doubling point of its $35 million budget, which I think it'll be able to get to by the end of this week. So Cocaine Bear will end up being a box office success, which I am very happy about. That the fact that a studio was willing to release a movie as risky and as bizarre and absurd as this one, and it was actually able to pay off for them in some way, shape, or form. And I do hope that this will lead to other studios taking note of this, not to make like more similar killer animal movies, even though we're pretty much getting those already with Meth Gators and Cocaine Shark. But I do think that with other studios, I hope they learn to take more chances with some of these out there bizarre concepts and giving them enough promotion and enough awareness to generate buzz so that they can become decent successes like this movie. So that's what I'm really hoping for ends up happening with this film in the future. But yeah, this movie is pretty much a box office success already. It made well more than I think a lot of people were expecting it to, and I'm pretty sure everyone involved making this movie is pretty happy with how it's doing and where it's going to continue doing, as once again it's about to become a box office success. Despite leaving the top 5, this is still a pretty decent hit and a pretty solid run overall for Cocaine Bear. Number 4 was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, making $7.1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $198 million and a worldwide total of $447 million. So on the positive side of things, it is just a little over $50 million away from surpassing $500 million worldwide. We'll see if it can get there. And on the domestic side of things, it is just $2 million away from surpassing $200 million domestically, which it will be able to do very soon, as well as becoming the first film of the year to surpass the milestone, which you can't argue that is definitely something to celebrate over. But other than that, this movie is still struggling, as it is still falling short behind the past 2 Ant-Man films worldwide. Domestically, it's surpassed the first film, but it's still behind the second film. Word of mouth just hasn't been doing this movie any favors, despite a much better hold in its entire theatrical run this weekend with just 44%, but it's still nowhere where I think they wanted this movie to be. I think they were expecting or hoping for a much bigger turnout, but this is unfortunately the best they could do, and I do think it's going to take another hit this weekend, as there is another big comic book movie hitting theaters this weekend. More on that later. So yeah, still overall a pretty underwhelming performance for Ant-Man. Number 3 was 65, opening with $12 million this weekend domestically and $20 million worldwide. So while this movie was able to exceed my expectations a little bit, I was surprised it was able to get past the double digits, honestly. And given the worldwide totals compared to its $45 million budget, it technically in a good place right now. More on that later, but the downside is that, well, it really didn't exceed them by all that much. I just did not see the interest for this film, unfortunately. Maybe when the first trailer came out, but that has definitely died down. Unfortunately, I just didn't hear a lot of people talking about this movie. The marketing wasn't the best. I saw promotion and advertising for it here and there, but not enough to say that it was, prevalent. And reviews were also not good at all. Pretty bad, to be honest. This movie was just not going to do all that well, and I'm not sure if it's gonna be able to leg out very well either, as audiences don't seem to really like this movie either. It got a C+ on CinemaScore, which is not great. We'll definitely have to see how its legs are, and hopefully it will maybe be able to surpass its $45 million budget, but I'm going to be very skeptical and hesitant about that. Speaking of that $45 million budget, the film is technically in a good place right now, as it's made roughly half of that thanks to the worldwide numbers. I'm honestly surprised they were able to keep this under $50 million given the special effects about how, and it's about dinosaurs, but hey, what do you know? So maybe there will be a chance this movie, at the very least worldwide, surpasses its initial budget, or maybe even gets close to the doubling point. But once again, given the bad word of mouth and the huge amount of movies on the horizon, I definitely think this movie is going to get lost in the shuffle. So unfortunately, while it exceeded my low expectations, it didn't exceed them enough to where I can say I was impressed. Number 2 was Creed 3, making $27 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $101 million and a worldwide total of $179 million. So not only was the film able to become the second film of the year to surpass $100 million domestically, but it is now officially the second highest grossing film of the year. Who would have guessed, am I right? As well as the fact that not only has it surpassed the doubling point worldwide of its $75 million budget, but it's also just $20 million away from the $200 million milestone worldwide, which is exceptional. This movie took a bigger hit than I was expecting. I thought with the positive response from audiences it would hold a bit better, but 52% still isn't that bad. That's pretty much the safe bet in regards to your second week hold. So this movie, while a bigger drop than expected, still holding pretty well. Word of mouth is definitely helping this movie out a lot. The daily numbers especially were pretty huge, and overall it's still continuing to be quite the breakout hit. I'm sure everyone is still very happy to see it doing well. It'll definitely be interesting to see how well it does in the coming weeks with a lot more bigger blockbusters on the horizon, but the film's already made well more than it needed to, so I don't think anyone would be too upset where this movie goes from here. But yeah, overall Creed 3 still a pretty big hit right now, doing very impressive numbers. I don't see anyone being upset with where it's at right now, and we're all pretty excited to see where it goes from here. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Scream 6, opening with $44 million domestically this weekend and $67 million worldwide. This is the third biggest opening weekend of the year, topping Megan and Cocaine Bear, but sitting behind Creed 3 and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It's the biggest opening weekend for a horror film, topping Megan and Knock at the Cabin, as well as the biggest opening weekend for a Scream film pretty much ever, topping the third film's $34 million opening back in 2000. Overall, this is a fantastic opening weekend, exceeding pretty much everyone's expectations, if I'm going to be honest with you. I thought this movie would never see 40 million this weekend, but it was able to do that, and I'm genuinely impressed. But I really should have, honestly, as the marketing for this movie was outstanding. Tons and tons of promotion, all the publicity stunts were absolutely outstanding. The buzz was really strong and reviews were very good. This movie, I just didn't, for some reason I didn't see it hitting 40 million. I thought it would still do very well, but I didn't see it. But that's on me, I guess. And also, since the film costed $35 million, it was able to surpass that entire budget domestically this weekend. But in regards to worldwide, it is just $3 million away from doubling that budget. And given the time this video comes out, I'm certain this movie will be able to do that. So congratulations. Yeah, overall, this is a very good start off to the film. I'm very curious to see how it legs out. We'll see if it suffers a similar drop off to the first film. At that, the first film, while successful, did take quite a hit in its second weekend. This movie got a B+ on CinemaScore, which is best case scenario for a horror film, but we'll just have to wait and see how that affects its second weekend. But otherwise, this movie is looking like it's going to be a very decent hit at the box office, very solid hit overall, especially with the fact that it is the only horror film playing in theaters right now till, I believe, Evil Dead Rises in late April. So it's got plenty of time to make all the money it needs to, and I think it'll stand out from the crowd as, once again, it being the only horror film amongst all these big blockbusters. So yeah, a great start off to Scream 6. We'll see where it goes from here, how big it can go, if it can become the biggest Scream film ever. But yeah, this is still a fantastic start overall. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we only really have one new major wide release, and that is Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Now this may come to surprise a lot of you, but I have mixed feelings on this opening weekend. Now, for the positives, with it being the sequel to Shazam, one of the more critically acclaimed and beloved films of the DC universe, it really struck a fan base of people who really like this movie. I think that could spark an interest, as well as the fact that it is the first new comic book movie since Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I think people, also with the fact that it's the first DC film of the year, I think people will be interested in that to compare the two, as most comic book fans do with DC and Marvel. And first reactions are out and they are very positive. Lots of people are really liking this movie, and I think that could also help out. And as well as the fact that the marketing has been okay, it certainly has been better than the past couple Warner Brothers movies, like Magic Mike's Last Dance and especially House Party. But the downside of this all is the fact that the buzz is just not strong. I'm not seeing a whole lot of people talking about this movie or even aware that the movie comes out. And like I said, the marketing has just been okay. I've seen promotion and ads for it, but not to the point where I think it's been doing a good job of getting the word out. Again, I barely know a lot of people who know this movie is even coming out this weekend. So yeah, this is definitely going to be a very interesting weekend for this movie. We'll see how it does. Hopefully it exceeds expectations, kind of like what the past couple of weekends have been doing for many movies. But I'm gonna hold my breath on this one. I'm gonna be very skeptical on this one. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's gonna do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied? Unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.